Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Rose.
To and B, consideration of the budget adjustment requests.
President of the Board Superintendent. So you have for your consideration a couple of adjustments from last current fiscal year. The first one was from supplies to salary line items under Title 1. The second one is a short transportation for going on to the summer. So we're providing some transportation for that. That is sent for any questions.
Questions, everyone? Have a motion? Mr. Caldwell.
Yes. Mr. Ross, yes. Mrs. Ireland, yes. Mr. Nelson, yes. Mr. Nelson, yes. Mr. Rose.
To see consideration to approve edits to 26-27 school year.
President, Superintendent. So these are allocations that we got after our last meeting. So they weren't able to budget that was presented at a May meeting. This is for the Perkins, homegrown. We have had it in the past. We forgot to have this one last year. And then the last one is the next gen. It's a CTE program grant as well.
What is that nice program there?
So that's for the student nutrition. They step through different companies as well.
Any question for motion? I make a motion to review whatever we're doing to school year, the number of moving 79, and number 2, number 1 as the need, review the range of different education pilot.
I'll second that.
Can you give one circle?
Yes, again. Mr. Rose, yes. Mrs. Ireland,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Ireland,
Yes.
Mr. Rose.
So B, consideration to authorize a school improvement and transformation application with Jonas Chavez Charter High School.
And then we have Mrs. Paxton to assist us with this. Totally can slide that over our slideshow to at least give them a good briefing on this. And then we'll hear from Mrs. Paxton.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, give me 1 second. I'm going to put my overview and I'll let you start. Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to bring your attention to these three bullets here that really kind of talk about what this hiring is going to talk about. Because the charter school and the MRI designation for multiple years with the regulation that required under the SLR plan. Now, with the two charters, did a great job at increasing the graduation rate over the last few years. So on and up. So it's not was always high enough to be able to have that information, but not. We actually did a great job, and they are required to undergo this, and those reimbursements that they're going to be doing as part of this restructuring. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. So I'll go ahead and let Ms. Paxton begin with what she wants to share, and we will provide something for you to use. Ms. Paxton.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you for this opportunity to come and speak to you on behalf of Deming Cesar Chavez Charter High School. As part of our request for you to consider authorizing our school improvement and transformation application, I'd like to speak to you about our redesign plan. So our current status is MRI designation. Our graduation rate was at 65.5%. Our redesign path that we have in mind will help us maintain our school, implement new systems, and preserve relationships. The vision that we have is to focus on career pathways, continue to serve as credit recovery, and prepare students for workforce readiness. Our instructional model, we will continue to work with gradual release of responsibility and also work with backward design to where our data is producing more information, more data driven is our focus change. We want to change from course completion to data driven, focusing on grades, attendance, and social emotional learning. We will increase our rigor by focusing on academic standards and content. So we plan on focusing on common CFAs every 4 weeks, interims every 9 weeks to drive our instruction. Next year, we plan on, and we've already hired 2 interventionists, one for reading and writing and one for math. Our accountability that we are prepared to take on is that we will do weekly tracking of grades, our attendance, and social emotional of our students so that we can better serve them. And we will continue to track graduation data and have data meetings every 9 weeks with our core teachers. So our redesign plan school model includes bringing in double block classes, intervention time, internships, certifications, and dual credit. For our culture, we will continue to work with the FISH philosophy. And our implementation timeline, next year, 26-27, is our transition year. By 27-29, we will be ready to implement full rollout with an evaluation in 2029. This redesign plan will allow us to meet some of our needs, such as staffing flexibility, scheduling, and continue to maintain our partnerships. And our commitment will be to increase graduation rates and student success. At this time, I don't know if you have any questions where you would like me to clarify a little bit more.
I just want to say, Ms. Paxton, I know Ms. Pajo's not available, but I had a chance to, kind of look at the application. I think it's very well thought out and a good shift to, again, just about less than 10% more graduation. I think you guys will get a designation at a school like Cesar Chavez. Less than 10% is we're talking 2-3 kids. The work you all have done there, you're just 2-3 kids away, I think, from hitting that thing. So, again, we appreciate that service you provide to the kids in our community.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity, for us to continue to serve our students and our families.
Any questions or discussion among the board regarding this item? Have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Johnson? Mrs. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Orozco?
Yes.
Mrs. Finley?
Yes.
Mr. Crowe, yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Paxton. Thank you, Ms. Paxton.
Thank you.
On to our discussion items, graduation profile.
Okay, I want to, this is a different hat. I'm going to keep you out the one they just got back. I just want to talk to you a little bit about our graduate profile because it will lead nicely, or our graduate profile as is, because it will lead nicely into what Ms. Wyka will be talking about shortly. If you go to the next slide, Charles. That's okay. It's good. So just for your information, if you weren't aware, I think I had brought up graduate profile before and kind of recognized, hey, I'm not sure everybody is aware what the requirements of our graduate profile are. And so a couple years ago, or the legislative session before last, as part of the adoption of the new graduation requirements, that same bill included elements about adopting a graduate profile. And of course, state law has to identify areas of competency, and those 6 ones you see in the second bullet: communicator, the cognitive, personal, interpersonal skills. We've organized our current one around the 6 competencies that you see there. Now, Ms. Nips had worked on this as one of her projects in the Aspiring Superintendent Academy, and worked with previous superintendent to kind of get it into a manner that could be communicated out. Now, it's very likely this graduate profile was put together in conjunction with the last strategic plan. So I'm going to have Charles click on that current profile of a graduate, so you can kind of see what it looks like. Probably seen this this sheet before around, right? Those are the 6 elements, and these are what we want our kids to demonstrate under each one. So I do want to let you know, as we move through our strategic plan here, we want to kind of decide, hey, does our graduate profile need any kind of revision, better communication out to the community? I sent this off to the PED for a review to ensure it meets all the requirements. What I have identified in this is that, yeah, there's going to be a little work need to be done on a little briefing I gave you, mapping it directly to our courses, right? Mapping it directly to our next step plans. And I think those things will kind of get us where we need to be. But I do like these big concepts that are on here about what we want out of our graduates. I think it's just making sure after we finalize it with our strategic plan, that we put it together kind of as a package on what we want out of our graduates. So I just wanted to bring this kind of to the forefront, that it had been worked on, and Ms. Nips did take a big lead on that. So any questions you might have right now about the profile on what you understand as of now? Get back on it later, but any big broad questions? So again, you have that as a reference. You have this briefing as a reference, and again, we may see these things continue to appear in our future plan as we kind of move forward over the next week or so. To we can get that finalized. If we need more time with our strategic plan, that's no problem. I think the goal would be we have something to launch with our staff as a guidepost for our staff when they come back to school in July. So, all right, I think we'll move on to our next item when you're ready, Madam President.
To be strategic plan revision updates.
Yeah, I think we have Miss Waika online. I know some of you met her in person. She's going to join us next week in person. She could be in New Mexico somewhere. We don't know. She's like, come in San Diego. That's a very good reference for.
I am actually at home in Nashville right now, believe it or not.
Okay. All right, Ms. Waika. And they have a paper copy here if just in case they need it of what you shared of the framework. So go ahead, Ms. Waika, all yours.
Well, good evening, board members and Superintendent Wolgemuth. Again, I'm Stephanie Waika with Everest, and it's a pleasure to be with you guys tonight. Tonight, I'm going to share the next steps in the Deming Public Schools strategic plan process. You all have a handout that is crafted to follow along with the slides that I am going to share. I'm just going to share a couple additional data points on the slide that help you to understand a little bit more about the document that you have in front of you. You may remember that we some time together in March doing an impact and feasibility exercise, working through proposed strategies and focus areas for the board and thinking about what was most actionable for Deming. That was a really important time that we spent together. I know it was so helpful for me in really digging in and understanding the board's priorities and perspectives. And it was just one part of a much broader listening effort we conducted across the district this spring. So tonight I want to show you what we have heard across all of the groups, share the data that helped us make sense of it, and walk you through the 4 priorities that came out of that process. So when we're looking at this, before we get into exactly what we heard, I want to give you all a sense of the scope of the listening effort. Over the course of the spring, we gathered input from 5 different pathways: students, families, community members, and staff through panorama surveys, your board session in March, separate prioritized sessions with staff leaders, and then also surveys for especially for students and then community members, which would included families specifically related to the strategic plan. In total, we had more than 2,500 individual voices inform this work. And alongside all of that, we had state assessment data for the accountability models and graduation data as well. The reason I'm showing you this is simple. No single group drove these priorities. When you see the same themes come up independently across students, families, teachers, and board members, that convergence tells you something real. And that's exactly what happened here. So this convergence looked like what you see here on the screen. 4 themes surfaced consistently across every group we talked to. Reading and math achievement was named as a top priority by 60 to 66% of respondents, depending upon the group. Student wellness, safety, and belonging had 64.5 of community respondents named bullying prevention specifically, which was the highest selection rate of any single item in the entire community survey. College and career readiness, 73.6% life skills, which was also the highest the next highest item in the community survey. An educator in instructional quality and supports, specifically development, came through strongly in staff and community responses. What's meaningful here is not just the numbers, it's that these themes weren't prompted. They emerged across different question formats, different groups, and different data collection tools. And that kind of consistency was a really strong signal. Oh, apologies, I went one slide too far. The survey data told us what people felt, and the accountability data told us what's actually happening in classrooms, according to the data from the New Mexico Public Education Department. And the 2 are telling some similar stories. On literacy, approximately 30% of students district-wide were proficient in ELA grades 3 through 8 as of 2024-2025. That means roughly 7 out of 10 students were not yet reading at the proficiency expectations according to the state of New Mexico. On math, proficiency was below the state average of 27% at most grade levels. We'll look more closely at the math picture in a moment because there's a specific pattern in the data that's worth understanding. On school climate, only 18% of secondary students agree that students follow the rules. Secondary school climate overall is at 34% favorable on the Panorama survey. That was one of the lower scores across all measured categories. I also want to name what's going well because it really matters. The graduation rate for the class of 2025 was 82.5%, which was up 5.9 points. And that puts Deming among the fastest growing graduation rates in New Mexico. That is a real accomplishment and it reflects genuine effort. The work ahead is about making sure that the students who are graduating are proficient and that they're leaving with a clear next step. So, what did all of that produce? 4 priorities. Each one is grounded in what we heard from the community and confirmed by the data. Each strategy within them was selected because it has a direct impact on what students experience daily and because Deming has the capacity to implement it well. I'll walk through each one briefly. You have the full priority document, so tonight is less about reading every strategy and more about understanding the reasoning behind each priority. All right. And so I am going to go ahead and bring us into our first priority here, which was our literacy priority. And when we look at the literacy priority, it was important to note that literacy was one of the number one priorities by both community selection rate and by data. About 30% of students are proficient in ELA district-wide, and the community heard that and named it loudly. 60% of students and 66% of community respondents called it their top focus. The gaps are sharpest for multilingual learners and for students who arrive at secondary without foundational reading skills. So, the good news. District-wide ELA gains in 24-25 were among the strongest in New Mexico. Growth is happening. And these 4 strategies that you see pictured here on the slide and are also in your handout are designed to strategies, but did you need me to pause?
Oh, no, you're back. You're back. You were mute for a second, Stephanie. You're back now.
I'm so sorry. I'm glad I'm back. Did you need me to go back a little bit about the strategy?
Here's Stephanie. Thanks.
Yeah, sure thing. So I just wanted to go back to in the good news part, district-wide ELA gains in the 24-25 school year were among the strongest in New Mexico. So we all know that growth is really happening, and these 4 strategies are designed to extend that growth to every student in every school. So the strategies focus on structured literacy in kindergarten through 12th grade in our ELA and reading classes. And this is including secondary, where the New Mexico Public Education Department is now expanding that emphasis as well. A guaranteed curriculum with common pacing guides. So every classroom is teaching the same standards with the same depth. Universal screening 3 times a year with an accelerated response, and building principal capacity through walkthroughs and collaborative calibration. Now I'll go ahead and move us into our math data. The math picture requires a little more explanation, and I think this visual makes it clear. What you're seeing is that students come through grades 4 and 5 with some proficiency, low but present. By grade 8, most students are scoring at the novice level, which is the lowest achievement category with the New Mexico's accountability system. That decline is not a middle school problem in isolation. It's a compounding problem that starts in elementary and becomes very difficult to reverse by the time students are reaching secondary. Overall math proficiency is below the state average, and the community flagged this alongside literacy. 66% named math as a top concern. The strategies address both the root cause and the pattern. A high-quality K through 12 math curriculum with common pacing ensures standards are actually taught and taught consistently. And this year, a new math curriculum is being adopted. Diagnostic assessment in grades 4 through 6 allow us to catch the decline before it compounds. Formative assessment embedded in teacher team planning cycles keeps instruction responsive to what students actually know. And the same principal walkthrough and calibration approach we're using in literacy would apply here as well. The wellness data and the community voice are pointing in the same direction here, and I want to be straightforward about what the numbers show. Secondary school climate is at a 34% favorable. Only 18% of secondary students agree that students follow rules. Sense of belonging is at 41%, meaning fewer than half of middle and high school students feel they belong at school. At the same time, there are real positive signals. School safety improved 7 points among families year over year, and staff and leadership relationships improved 6 points. These numbers can and do move, and that matters for how we approach this priority. The community was consistent. 64.5% named bullying prevention as a top need. Students can't engage with rigorous content in environments where they don't feel supported. And that's not separate from the academic priorities, it's a precondition for them. The 4 strategies here build a district-wide behavioral support framework with consistent expectations and explicit instruction and regulation skills, proactive attendance systems triggered by early warning indicators, social and emotional learning integrated into existing content rather than added on top, and restorative practices to reduce the exclusionary discipline that removes students from learning time. And for our last priority, I want to start here by naming that graduation rate again, because it sets the right frame for this priority. 82.5%, up 5.9 points from the prior year. That's real momentum. The college and career readiness priority is about what happens after the diploma. The community rated our current college and career readiness preparation at 2.89 out of 5. And that was the lowest of any area in the survey. 73.6% named life skills as their top college and career readiness need. Students want relevance. 59% of students named career exploration as what they most wanted from Deming Public Schools. There's also a compelling data point worth noting. New Mexico's CTE completers graduate at 94% versus 74% for non-CTE completers. Workforce and trade pathways aren't just a college and career readiness strategy, they're also a graduation strategy. So the 4 strategies make this concrete. A personalized graduation and career plan for every secondary student by grade 9, financial literacy and life skills as a part of every student's graduation pathway, expanded CE with real credentials and employer connections, and structured transition supports, such as FAFSA completion, dual credit enrollment, and pathway connections before every senior leaves Deming Public Schools. So where do we go from here? Tonight's ask is that you all consider and understand these priorities and the strategies underneath them as the foundation for the 2026 through 2029 strategic plan. You've seen where they came from, you've seen the data behind them, and you've been a part of the process that shaped them. Next week, I'll be back, but just this time in person in the beautiful land of enchantment with the other half of this picture. Recommended end of plan goals for each priority, suggested annual benchmarks, and the leading indicators we'll use to monitor progress together each quarter. Those are the early signals, the things we can track before the end of the year assessments come back that tell us whether we're on track. And so at this time, I just want to say thank you all for the opportunity to share with you tonight. I am truly excited for what's to come, and it's been just a pleasure to be a part of this process. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it back to Superintendent Wolgemuth and the board for any questions and discussions.
I'll just say very broadly here. Thank you, Stephanie. We have these 4 big broad areas. Touch base with Mrs. Reinhardt on these as well. I guess from you all as the board, these 4 broad areas to focus all of our work on, right? Everything that we do should fall into one of these big buckets. Some of these things aren't necessarily a surprise. I think some of the stuff having to do with college readiness was maybe a little more elevated from all the groups than I sort of expected. But I guess my question is, do we have the 4 buckets right based on our experience across the community? Ms. Reinhardt feels those are the right 4 buckets. Do we have our 4 buckets correct?
I think so. I think, you know, that literacy, I think we go back, we've talked to that, about that before, but that literacy is huge. You know, and it even comes down to the component of whether you finish school or not, and I'm not advocating not to finish school, right? You know, understanding being able to read something with you, nobody can take away. So I think that's huge, and I think that is a piece that can help solve some of the other pieces, right? Because if kids can't read, but they can't test, they can't understand a question, you can't. You know, so it just goes hand in hand with a lot of stuff. So I think that makes math is important too, you know, and I think those other buckets are just as important.
I would say with student wellness and safety and belonging, I think that's something that everybody knows is important, but I feel like they were able to put it together. It's kind of, you know, when it comes to behaviors and things like that, a lot of people really don't understand how it all works. So I feel like that's a really good thing. I mean, it's something we can carry all along with that and what we need to know.
Yeah, we even had it at one time prior to, we had roundtable discussions with law enforcement entities across the area. We come and discuss things, how they can help support the school, we would also support the families. So that probably becomes a good piece to be able to kind of maybe get going again. So to see how they can help contribute to that overall, some education on bullying, things like that. That was interesting what you said, Stephanie, about the bullying. That was the highest thing that was mentioned. So we either have a problem or, I mean, something, you know, we got to work on that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Kroll to that point, and Stephanie helped me with this if I get this. So this is kind of how a superintendent leadership, we look at this. We know that with all of us in this room and in this building and across this district, from the administrative office to the classrooms to all of our staff, there's a lot on everybody's plate. And some of those things come and they're put on the plate by different people that we don't have control over. This has to be the plate. And when we're trying to say what needs to be on the plate or off the plate, we need a street plan to guide us. You know what? This is to take it off the plate. And we could say there's 1,000 things that need to be on the plate for literacy. We really have to have a conversation about, in that part of the plate, what are the essential ingredients? Because, you know, Stephanie and Everest, with some of the work that they're doing that she might have a chance to talk about next week on the return on investment and how are some of the essential things we're doing. Are we getting the bang for our buck? Are they resulting in the student outcomes we need in reading and literacy? This really helps us decide, of all those things, what can we, this is going to sound, what can we take away, right? To hone it, we have to focus and take things away and refine them to a place where we're getting to the heart of things. Because as a leadership team and a superintendent, we could everybody in this room could come talk to you about 1,000 different things all the time. We want to make sure that we're bringing to you information on the areas that are digestible and understandable and important. And that's kind of the point of the Stephanie, did I miss anything? Kind of my plate analogy?
No, I really appreciate that. And I always just say, you can't be great at 40 things. You can be really great at 4 big things and go deep with them and make change. And I would just say to board member Crowley's comment, yes, I think that, you know, there's an awareness level around that, and that was definitely considered when we were developing the strategy suggestions for the student wellness, safety, and belonging piece.
And I think it was very interesting. And I think we heard this maybe in person from the district leadership student group. Everybody is perceiving in our panorama survey that everybody needs to be respectful. Does that make sense? We don't have a lot of kids walking around here saying nobody needs to be respectful. They're all perceiving of each other. We need to be more respectful of you. And I think that's a very positive thing that they recognize probably in each other and themselves. We need to be, you know, more respectful in our schools. We need to follow rules better. So I think that's something that we can figure out how to work on, how to activate that. Being respectful is a skill. Does that make sense? It's like a soft skill. and sometimes have to explicitly teach that. And so I think that was kind of revealed to me as well. What other questions might the board have, or direction we want to have Stephanie and Learning Services sort of go in as we move forward through next week for another consideration?
You know, I think that part of it maybe too is an education piece on the building, and I'd say that from the perspective people's almost knee-jerk reaction sometimes, like a situation happened in school, and so they go to social media right away and they kick out bullying. And it's not necessarily a situation that it was in fact or met the criteria or was a definition of bullying, but to them that's the word that they use, and then everybody kind of gets on the bandwagon and says, "Well, my kid had this, and my kid had this." And instead of trying to pick each other apart with that, maybe an education piece to do the opposite, right? So if a kid has a situation and it turns to social media, maybe as a community as a whole, like, hey, let's come together and try to figure out how do we get past that point? How do we try to make things better instead of continuing terrible point?
I agree, Ms. Roscoe, and I do think, right, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. There's an education issue to it. And we have invested in this and something we're going to work with our principals as we launch it the next year. When it comes to bullying, there's an information piece to it about what bullying is and isn't. And then there is a procedural and consistent way to attempt to respond to bullying and alleged bullying, right? Systematically, we need to consider on how, right, in educating, and then how we respond to it. And sometimes when we respond to it procedurally, things won't come out as that really wasn't bullying. And sometimes that's not a good rub from the parent and the students, families of the parent and the student who's experiencing something, right? We can't disregard that they did experience negative conflict, disrespect in school. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's bullying, and all those things have to be addressed, but I think addressed over time and in different ways.
That's something where we could have, not like maybe a class on it, but I mean, in life, you experience all the time. You are not going to get along with everybody. So to learn earlier that not every conflict is a bullying. Like, we just don't agree right now. It's not necessarily.
And I think it goes in number 3. I think Stephanie had a kind of a priority on there about SEL and education. There's an element of that, right? In regulation, understanding, it's all part of that. And
so next week we'll have more like how we're going to accomplish this.
She's gonna have some outcomes for us, and then our strategic plan may not necessarily list every exact thing we're going to do. It's going to provide us a framework for us to, as a leadership team here, to decide how to go forward and approach it. But what Stephanie really will help us with in conjunction with Learning Services is coming up with some outcomes, right? You all need outcomes brought to you of here's how things are going up or down, and what are the right outcomes to look at. And so we're going to work towards that a little bit next week. Other questions we might have for Ms. Whiteman?
I had a question, Bethany, as far as the strategic plan itself, is it going to be like this handbook looking thing at the end of it, or what's the end result look like?
That's a great question. The end result is kind of always a little bit of a booklet. There are typically things that boards and districts like to include in there: their mission, their vision, their profile of a college graduate. But I would say it would be much briefer than some of the other versions that maybe you've experienced in the past. The focus area would be on these 4 priorities, which are shifted into goals and outcomes, and then the strategies and how we would be monitoring implementation of the strategies and the leading lagging indicators for those goals. And that's what we're going to dig into a little bit next week to as Superintendent Wolgemuth had shared.
Okay, and then so that final product, is that something that we would have before the start of the school year?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by the board? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wyko. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Looking forward to see you next week.
See you all next week. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Right on to item C, update resolution and policy maker correspondence regarding the proposed Community Leadership Academy, K-8 state charters.
Madam President, members of the board, as you are aware, there was a notice of intent to apply earlier this year for a proposed K-8 charter school here in Deming, proposed to be a state authorized charter school, not authorized by the district. Deming Cesar Chavez is authorized by the district. This group is looking to have state authorization done. State authorization is done through a 10-member state board called the Public Education Commission. And so I want to make sure we had a discussion today about what impact a charter school could have, make sure we verify for the community some information that we have. And then, of course, as part of this process, the Public Education Commission will be coming to Deming likely sometime later this summer for a public input before they vote and decide, much like you, they're a board and they vote and decide. So what I presented to you here on the screen, I think are some broad talking points. Because at the end of the day, we have to decide as a board, our communication we want to make out about this to our policymakers in our community. So I think some big broad things are to know that this is not affiliated with Deming Public Schools. Okay, it's not affiliated. We're not responsible for it, and we're not authorizing it as a board. Okay, it is supposed to be housed in our community. Obviously. If approved, right, it will take students from our district into their charter. We know that the funding is associated with students, and again, even if students are enrolled in this charter school, which they're looking for a maximum of approximately 400 at the end of 5 years, doesn't lower our obligations to continue to provide services for our families and our kids. I will say, 400 sounds, it's a significant amount that could impact the budget, but that might be a couple students at every classroom. Right? I can't take out 1/10 of a teacher, right? It doesn't matter if there's 20 or 23 kids, still be the whole teacher, right? Doesn't matter if there's 40 or 45 kids on a bus. We still have to transport. So there's still a cost of educating our kids. That even though 400 sounds like a lot, when you take that out across the district, it's parts, and we still have a responsibility to provide services for the kids that are here.
That would be almost like an elementary school.
Yes, sir, it would be. I think that in the application, I think it goes right along with what Stephanie was saying, what we're just talking about, like kind of what you see, some discussion that we're trying to have around the room here in the leadership team last week. Yeah, we're aware as a school board. I'm aware as a new superintendent here in town, and this leadership team is aware of the community, of the concerns that are expressed in the application, and we are trying to work through some strategic planning and some safety and discipline improvements in our school, some cultural improvements in our school, and at the end of the day, right, most importantly, instructional supports for all of our kids. So I think it's important to know that we are aware, and I think have been aware of some of these concerns that are coming out as a possible reason to establish the charter school. So I think what we need to have a little conversation about this evening is what kind of, do we want a formal resolution and communication to policymakers expressing our position, expressing some of our concerns with what I've seen in the application as possible impacts. I have listed here for you, if we want to, craft a resolution or craft some communication to the PEC, what is it? And it's the last bullet here. What is important that we focus on, right? Is it focusing on the financial stability, the funding, the sped capacity, the readiness of facility, whether or not the application itself meets the criteria? Well, we need a little guidance on kind of where to focus some of our our efforts on, I handed you out, a document, that maybe I didn't save myself a copy of. You still have to, oh, is there an extra copy? Okay. Not good at papers tonight, Ms. Johnson. I'm passing them up and down and.
I didn't write on it.
And all around. Thank you. This one I handed you here, that's for board meeting discussion of proposed charter school. We got our facts on the left, our impact on the right. Again, those kind of align with some of those areas on our presentation here. And then, obviously, there's a little summary of some of the budget stuff from, the application as well. So I'd like to hear from the board, how you'd like us to proceed as leadership, and come back next week, with a resolution, from the board asking us to act. What you'd like us to do? What are some areas you'd like us to focus on in our communications to the PEC and the rest of the community?
Well, for sure, they're gonna not for the school, you know what I'm saying? It's, what's really sad is if they do get approved and they take 300-400 kids away from us, we still have to keep going because we are a public school. We have to continue going and moving forward. So in the year, if they fail, we still need to get them kicked back, or, it's just an injustice, I feel. Kids will be going back and forth or whatever, so I definitely think we need to pounce on it and basically state our claims that we, what I'm saying, we're here, we're trying our very best to do the best we can for our kids. And just because we get a new shiny thing doesn't mean it's best. Plus, what it might do to our district in the short term. Because in the long term, I don't think it's going to succeed. That's the way I see it. It's very difficult to run a school. You know that, how hard it is to run a school every day, day in, and all these people here know exactly what it takes. So they want to take a few kids and then try to develop them and do what we're basically doing. And it's a hard job. So I feel that it's going to affect us in the long run. Or stand up and say something. That's for the board.
What is the SDG for 1.0?
So what I have here for you, what Mr. Adcock prepared for me is remember, students, right? You're right. We have a unit value, and then each kid is worth 1 unit, but then basically the other factors, additional things are added. So Mr. Adcock figured out, with all the factors included, the unit value, Joe, standalone about 7.6 something this year. Was the unit value? I'm sorry, quiz. A good superintendent quiz. So the unit value of 1 is 7,000. What'd you say, Joe? Okay, but when the average, about $15,000, right, per kid, right, because of the different factors they have. So we looked at kind of 7 and 8, 7th through 8th grade. The average with all the units included for an individual is about 14,000 per student. When you get into the elementary, it kind of closer to $15,000 per 15,000 plus per student. So on average, each student we lose could be $15,000 of SEG money. In total, that equals up about $6 million, around 400 kids. In the budget proposal that was included in the application, they're estimating about the same amount, right? So what Joe has provided as a possible impact, and what the founders have proposed as possible impact, is about, again, close to $5.8 million is what's listed here out of SEG.
So when you talk about that number, and earlier you talked about how you can't, you take parts here, parts there, but if you don't have enough money to pay for the whole part, it's got to come from somewhere, right? So, what would the reality be for DPS in 2-3 years if they have? I
think the reality would be, because I'll take a teacher for example. there are certain classroom requirements for teachers, right? We have to say that. So we can say, oh, well, we lost a whole teacher left, so we're going to put these two, second grade classes together. It's not going to work. It's not going to meet the requirements. And so where do when you're short on money, where do you start looking first at, your non-core, non-essential services, right? And things that add to that are operational. I mean, we have, athletics, activities, fine arts, things that draw a lot of kids and give that positive school life. Hey, we have additional support to support our administrators. We have additional support to support our teachers with EAs and support in the classroom. Those are the things that start coming off first, and it can impact the overall experience in our district. I can kind of look for, we subsidize. We subsidize nutrition. We subsidize transportation out of operational. Do we have to? I don't know how you trim back on that. You got to have a bus. You have to start doing double bus runs. So, kids are getting there at different times. I mean, there's all those things that you would start looking at. That's kind of where you start. You could get to situations where, like an elementary school now, I got 2 first grade teachers, 2 second grade teachers. For some reason, I have to lose one, but I can divide up the kids and meet the class requirement between 3. But now I have three multi-grade level classrooms, right? Or 2 multi-grade level classrooms, and that's not what we're trying to deliver. We're trying to deliver quality tier 1 instruction here, and that doesn't help in doing that. So that's just coming. Those things we'd have to look at.
Well, I have a question when it comes to homeschool. Do we have any idea how many kids are already in homeschool?
So I did look that up. Ms. Pies, currently at the end of 24-25, and all homeschool students are supposed to register with the New Mexico Public Education Department Homeschool Division. We have 111 students at the end of last year with the PED report that are enrolled.
Is that K-12?
That is K-12, yes, ma'am. So I don't have the information on how many of those would be K-8, but if you did, I mean, typically majority of the homeschool kids are your younger kids. But even if you did proportionally, 50 or 60 of those, I would say at minimum are for DK8 homeschool kids.
Why are you asking?
I'm just wondering.
But I also think,
wanted to get an idea.
and I think a little important,
A little bit of.
a little important thing is I think there may be an idea that, it's going to draw all the homeschool kids back in there. It's not going to draw any DPS kids. That's there. I will tell you this. I think sometimes, oh my gosh, there's more than 111 kids at homeschool. Is that out of the norm for New Mexico? I will tell you, it's not. I did a little looking. Of the 68 districts that have 2.2% of our kids are homeschooled. Out of the 68 districts that had reportable data, we were like 57. There are school districts throughout the state that have a much higher proportion of homeschool students. We have actually a relatively low proportion. I would say some of those families that are homeschooled are still going to choose to homeschool, right?
That's what I was.
So you've got maybe, we're going to 30 homeschool kids maybe join the charter. Well, there's still 370 that could potentially come out of DPS. So this idea that it's going to hit all one of them, probably not.
I think it just, us being a smaller town and we're one of the largest employers of people in this town. I think that if the situation will go to where we have to lay people off, it would be unfortunate. Number one, people that don't have the ability to leave or try to go find a job somewhere else. And so I hate to see, they've worked really hard to try and sustain the numbers that we have and the employees we have. And I hate to see employees laid off because that's what you're used to with the funds to be able to pay those. So I think that would be one of the biggest impacts for me is just the financial impact.
I would say that's definitely an issue, the financial effect. The enrollment has already gone down as it is.
There's only so much to squeeze. There's only so many kids we're gonna get. And so we're trying to fight for everything we got. And that's what we gotta continue doing. I mean,
I will share this as a broad thought as I was considering the application. And I think the DPS Chavez is a good example, right? Right? Charter schools, the intention is to provide a niche thing, a niche service that is unique, a unique need in the community. As I review some of this material, I'm not quite sure what the uniqueness is yet. I'll have to dig a little more to that. But that's what the charter school division looks for in charter schools, is what is unique about this? What can be done in this setting of a charter school that can't be done in a regular school setting? And I'm not sure.
And they would have to follow the same rule. Like,
Same.
you still had kids with said situations,
Absolutely.
behavior situations,
Absolutely.
everything that they had in their applications, there was a negative hit at DPS, they're gonna have in school.
It's a public
Because
school.
they cannot filter.
It is a
Filter to
it is a public school.
Right.
I think that's
That's what
an
I
important point.
would like to highlight, is no, you cannot say, it's not a private where you're sending these
Part
kids.
of the, I like that you said that, because what stood out to me was the lack of transportation, which does filter kids.
Right.
So you're already shutting the door on kids who need busing to get to and from school. And so that, I mean, that stood out to me, and I think I had to write things down that way. But I read all of it too. A lot of it seemed repetitive, a lot of it seemed AI generated, a lot of it seemed very fluffy, wordy type of things, without substantively saying what makes it unique, what makes it materially different from what DPS already provides. And I too couldn't find something unique. And I also felt like Cesar Chavez is so different. Which is why I also think it's important, separately from any resolution that the board might decide on next week. I think it's important that the public and the community and even maybe our own staff knows this is not something that DPS is a part of. It is wholly and entirely separate. Because I think if you don't work within a school, or you're not serving on a board like this, you're not really fully understanding how this works, because I had no idea how this works until now. You just see a school and you assume, well, it's public school, so they must all be connected, right? So like Cesar Chavez, though, is affiliated with us. We share resources, we support.
We're the authorizer.
We authorize, we oversee.
We authorize and oversee that school.
Yes.
Because we believe it is an important element to serve our community.
And this is a totally different thing. This is not affiliated with us whatsoever. And so I think for the community and for our own district to be clear on that, we're not providing resources to this charter school or oversight of any kind.
And just to add this point, I know the people starting it are doing it wholeheartedly, but they are not doing wholeheartedly for the kids because they cannot provide what we provide for them. They cannot. We have a teams of people that help the kids. They don't have that. They're going to have maybe 2, 3 people. And if they have a lot of sped kids, they got to deal with that. They're not providing the right education for the kids.
And I think what I'll say, Mr. Crow, and it kind of struck me as Ms. Crumley was talking, Luna County, my short time experience here, prides itself in making local decisions on what's best for Luna County, right? We're not looking for anybody else to come here and rescue us and kind of tell us what we need to be doing, right? This school board many years ago authorized Cesar Chavez as, hey, we believe this is important for our community. We'll be the authorizer. We'll take the responsibility of supervising, monitoring,
Supporting.
And supporting it. The PEC is not based in Luna County. It's a statewide board with, I believe, 1 member that represents our region. And, what I've seen in this community, having somebody else coming in and deciding what's best for Luna County and not the elected representatives of Luna County when it comes to education, I sometimes, think about that, right? Right. This is the board that was elected to decide what's best for this community's education and demonstrated that the Cesar Chavez was an important charter to have as a public school. We have a state agency as the 9 people that aren't from our area making a decision on this committee on this PEC on whether or not this is what Luna County wants.
And I think that's why our board has a responsibility to talk about it, has a responsibility to let the PEC know what our position is collectively as a board, because it does affect our district. So I think that it would be strange for us to not say anything, because that can be interpreted so many different ways that I think that would be weird. I think it would be weird that a new charter school is trying to come into our very small community, potentially taking away a few $1 million from the district, which are public funds. So you're just looking at, let's split up public funds, which doesn't seem very efficient to me. But I think that we should oppose it, but for objective reasons. I don't think that this new charter school, based on the materials, at least that I read, is uniquely different than what we already provide.
The one thing I did see in here, it talks about a smaller education, a smaller environment, and smaller doesn't necessarily mean better. Smaller means smaller, so it means smaller in a lot of.
The educator,
Yeah.
the
So,
highly qualified
yeah.
educator in the classroom.
Yes. So
with great
I will
leadership
tell you
on
from
campus.
experience that because it's smaller, if people still have to do the same jobs with the same, with less support and less funding. So,
And I think to Ms. Johnson's point, and even Ms. Crumley's point about, this board kind of decided something. There's also a misnomer, I think, you hit on it, right? That charter schools are private schools, right? That word charter means different things across the country. And New Mexico, it is intended to be a public school. And I think oftentimes when they spring up in our communities around New Mexico, there's a misunderstanding from families and parents that it's a public school, right? And I think any charter school across our state has a responsibility to make sure that the public is invited, the public is aware that the school is a representation and a cross section, a representation of the students in our community, right? And that everybody is aware that it's like just like our job, it's there to benefit all the kids in our district, like a cross section as a person.
and many of them have started up, but how many have been successful in have housing longevity?
I was a principal of a high school where a charter was started, a medical academy charter started for middle school and high school, and didn't last very long, right? And there was another one that was there that I worked there for a while, and those shriveled away. I'll tell you why they shriveled away. They shriveled away as the school district continued over time to provide better services, be more responsive. That's how the community continues to say, you know what? I see some improvements in our public school system. Right, we thought this is what the other schools could do. We went over there, and that wasn't the case.
A lot of the application material stands on negativity directed towards our district. It stands on lower proficiency rate, it stands on assertions that there's safety concerns. But I think that over this last year, we've made great strides in addressing those concerns.
Right, and it's a journey. It's a going forward on that. It's always going to be a thing. That's a continuous improvement process. It's never going to be perfect.
Right.
But it's always going to be growing. It should always be growing and moving in the right direction.
We got enough to
Okay. I
do
think
some a means and manner to convince people that we need to keep it.
So-
we have, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
So, Madam President, members of the board, what we'll do as a leadership team here, we'll kind of go back, we'll kind of look at a resolution that you all consider, next week. And then that resolution, if approved, can then, kind of express some broad thoughts and then really sort of, to an extent, authorize myself and members of the board to then, move forward with this as the board's voice. Does that make sense? We kind of need a resolution that's the board and the school district's voice, and then we can move forward from there we can move forward up there with the policymakers, the decision makers, with members of the community, or whatever we need to do to go to move forward. So I'll take the information from there and we'll get you something into. You're welcome.
Or to 9 board announcements and requests for items. Any requests for items on our next agenda? The board will be having the next regular meeting at the Emmett Shockley Administration Building on June 18, 2026. The meeting will begin at 5:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I think you should do it.
I'll say.
Mr. Polk?
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Johnson?
Yeah.
Mrs. Perez?
Yeah.
Mr. Roscoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Crumley?
Yeah.
And Mr. Troll, yes. Guys, thank you.
Yeah.